Hi, this is Trevor, and welcome back to our weekly tarot card video. Today is Thursday, September the 10th, 2015, and once again, I'm coming to you from my cozy little reading studio here at 161 Stafford Street in Winnipeg. If you're interested in booking an appointment with me, all of that information is on my website, and I always include the link below these videos. That's at trevorsense.com. And that's also where you'll find a handy listing. At the top of the page, it says Tarot Videos, and all of these videos are in a table of contents order. This is an interesting time of year. I always love fall, and it just seems like maybe because so many of us through our school days are used to moving into new lessons at this time of year and feeling a different sense of structure. It just seems to bring things into a different focus. I think also here in Winnipeg, where we get four very distinct seasons, we're beginning to feel a little of that sense of fall in the air. And that makes us start to look inward a little bit more and to think about our security and things along those lines. I always find this time of year, the first few weeks of school, are a time when my schedule can be very, very changeable. A lot of people are busy kind of getting into that new structure. So I always encourage people to call ahead. Now that I work really, for the most part, on an appointment structure, I always encourage you to give me a little notice, and then I can try and tailor a time that is convenient for you. I think it's important to get the most out of a reading to be arriving at a time when you know you can be relaxed. Certainly, most of us readers do like to be able to accommodate things like walk-ins, or sometimes people get a spur of the moment urge to come for a reading, and that can be great. But at the same time, sometimes people are at the mercy of the schedule. So again, I encourage you to call ahead if you're thinking about booking an appointment, and I'll do whatever I can to try and arrange a time that's comfortable for you. Enough about that. Let's get into our card of the week. We only have 4 cards left in the deck, and I couldn't help it. I peeked and I saw what they were, and because I've just been really curious, and as I put them in order, I can see the gaps that are there. So this is the last court card in our series, and I want to mention again that these are just some random thoughts on the cards, just some few things that come to mind in terms of them. There's certainly some great resources out there if you're looking at studying on an in-depth level. But these are just some random thoughts around how I've seen these cards come up and how they relate. So the last court card we have is the King of Swords. Right? And oftentimes with court cards, people will say, is this a good person or a bad person? It depends entirely on our interaction. Somebody who might be pretty easy to get along with for other people might be a challenge for us. And I often like to stress that in a reading, we're reading not so much that other person, but that person in relation to ourselves. So we really have to look at these things not as good guys or bad guys, but sometimes easy interactions or challenging interactions. I mention that because the King of Swords is a challenging figure in many respects. And there's a difference sometimes between what we see as right side up or upside down, reversed meanings. So sometimes the tendency is to think that when he's right side up, he's good, and when he's reversed, he's bad. That's not always the case. But it can suggest sometimes in a reversal that that energy is out of whack. Oftentimes when the cards say Page of Pentacles or Queen of Cups, we're talking about a person who has that predominant element going on. And if the element is out of whack, it's almost like we're letting the gift own us. And in the case of the King of Swords, where swords represent air, they represent that mental energy, how we deal with and interact with conflict, how we analyze, how we kind of have to sometimes take a stand on things, how in a positive way we can be protecting and establishing boundaries, and where we want to be trying to take a rational approach. So when that's reversed, when that's out of whack, it's sort of like more rationalizing than being rational. It can be like self-justification, and the sense of conflict really comes out. But sometimes if we're interacting with somebody like that, we have to say, why have I cast a villain in my life? Why am I giving this kind of power? Why am I perhaps making this person the bad guy? The King of Swords himself, in terms of a person with good and challenging qualities, is someone with a very strong analytical mind. Somebody who has the ability to kind of get to the heart of a situation, and somebody who we oftentimes want to have as a warrior in our life. This is why we need people to represent us sometimes, to maybe be analytical or to help us set a boundary. But we can be aware of that power exchange. And this can be a resource working with us as opposed to us just kind of giving up our power to it. I think of a very good friend of mine who has a strong kind of analytical nature, very discerning, and how this person had to work in a job that involved, having to kind of zero in and problem solve. And to do that in a manner that was open, addressing issues, a little like, when Judge Judy says, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. But at the same time, in a manner that says, hey, if we're dealing fairly here, we can come out with some good results. And then after having been in that high power job, transitioning into doing volunteer work, where the atmosphere involved a lot of people with good intentions, but again, sometimes that sense of having to address the issues. And we were talking about, because he's very familiar with tarot, about how the King of Swords has a broadsword. It's a sword with a flat blade. And how we learn that sometimes we use the edge of the blade, which can cut, and sometimes we use the flat of the blade. Just like crowd control, kind of tapping people rather than slicing them. And we learn how to work with that element in a way that is gentle but firm. And I think that's a great example of healthy King of Swords energy. So just some random thoughts once again. And as we move into new lessons, let's work with discernment. Let's work with the ability to kind of spot and identify things. But remember, we judge something when it's finished. And I don't think any of us are done. Take care and look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye for now.